I am Beyond Baroque's executive director, and I'm really thrilled to welcome everyone here tonight to a reading with Cahuenga Press in celebration of their newest title, Jim Cushing's Tangled Hologram. Uh, yes, Jim is here with the matching blue pants and blue book. We applaud color coordination. I love it. We've got four wonderful poets here tonight who are, I have to say, really feel like Beyond Baroque family. Phoebe McAdams, Northup, Jeanette Clough, and of course Jim Cushing. Before we get to the program, however, I would like to say a few words about Beyond Baroque. I'd like to begin by acknowledging Beyond Baroque's presence on the traditional, ancestral, and ceded territory of the Gabrielino Tongan peoples. We acknowledge the wrong done to these peoples through settler colonialism, genocidal practices, and the violent dispossession of their land. As an arts organization, we are committed to uplifting Indigenous writers and communities. About Beyond Baroque itself, we are very much a space for poets and writers. We've got writing workshops, including our free weekly Monday night fiction workshop and Wednesday night poetry workshop. We have regular master classes. Notably, we have an upcoming workshop in August taught by Elizabeth Koyman. That workshop will be entirely in Spanish. We've got regular readings and performances pretty much every week. On August 6th, we'll be hosting the great poet performance artist Gabrielle Seville in a performance piece that adapts her own book, Deja Vu. Next week, we don't have any programs, but we will be at Hauser and Worth downtown for Lit the festival. Please come. We'll have a table. I think I'm on a panel, and someone told me that. So check that out next weekend. We've got an art gallery upstairs. Our current exhibition features our poet in residence and Pulitzer Prize finalist Will Alexander's collaborative paintings with painter Byron Baker. It's a really incredible show. Please check it. We'll go downstairs, but head upstairs to see the main pieces. We've got an archive documenting the history of small press activity in Southern California, and last but not least, we have a bookstore in which we have all of our poets' books for sale. So please do check that out after the show, buy the books, and support our writers. Beyond all that, we've got a community of people dedicated to literature and the arts. We do depend on the support of that community for everything that we do. So please consider becoming a member of Beyond Baroque if you're not already. It starts as little as $50 for the individual membership, $75 for the dual membership. Helps keep these events free. If you have to charge, and your member will get in for free as well. It also really helps us rebuild from the pandemic. Our next project is really to renovate this patio so we can do more of these events outside. And so that is very much what your money will be going to support over the next few months. Speaking of our community, I did want to give a big thanks to our staff who worked on this program, our assistant director, Jimmy Vega, as well as Jade Lacey, Yvonne Salinas, Manuel Ibon, and Eric Alberg. Thank you all for all your work on the program. But beyond that, I just want to say let's get to the reading. As I said, a reading with Cahuenga Press feels very much like a family affair and a homecoming. Harry, who's with us, is of the founding generation of Beyond Baroque. Was one of the earliest participants in the Wednesday night workshop. Phoebe and Jeanette have been deeply involved here for years, and Jim has a very similar history as well. And really, it just happens to be both a brilliant electric poet and a very good friend to all of us. And so I'm just really happy to be able to host the launch of his new book, Tangled Hologram. So I think I'll just read. I'll introduce each writer as they come up. We're going to start with Phoebe McAdams. Was born and raised in New York City, but has lived in California most of her adult life. She has been active in the Los Angeles literary community since her move here in 1986. She's a founding member of Cahuenga Press, Poets Cooperative Press, 1989 to present, with the poets James Cushing, the late Holly Prado, and Harry Northup, and recently Jeanette Clough. She has published 8 books of poetry: Sunday Ever, and with Cahuenga Press, Ordinary Snake Dance, Livelihood, Strange Grace, Fetching Stone, and her most recent Cahuenga title, Large Economy, Selected Poems. In 2017, Beyond Baroque published Every Bird Helps, the Cancer Journal. Please, everyone, welcome Phoebe McAdams.
That on? Oh, yeah. Oh, good. Well, hello and welcome, and thank you for being here. And I'm so glad for this outdoor space. Thank you to Beyond Baroque, and thank you to Quentin for organizing this and all the staff. I'm so glad that Cahuenga Press is not going to be a super spreader event. So many thanks. Um, as as Quentin said, Cahuenga Press started publishing in 1989, and Jim's book is our 29th. And I am so grateful for our press, which has given me a literary family here in LA, and very happy that Cahuenga Press now includes Jeanette Clough. I'm going to start my reading with a poem from my book, Livelihood, which is my book about teaching at Roosevelt High School. These are poems that track my years there, where I worked from 1986 to 2011. I'm reading this poem in honor of our high school students and in memory of those students who lost their lives at the Robb Elementary School in Uvalde, Texas on May 24th. Steve's Tree, in memory of Steve Delgado, number 77. That's his football jersey number. I went to school today and came upon Steve's tree. 4 benches around it, painted red and yellow, as all our benches are, but on each bench were written notes, letters, thoughts from many students, photos, pictures, flyers, and some just said RIP. Students cried, quietly looking, sitting sadly. At the tree's base were flowers, purple balloons, more photos of Steve smiling with his friends. A student was sweeping the dirt with a forlorn, lost tenderness. Steve must be watching, I thought. He must be comforted. Our students did this on their own. Did you see Steve's bench, they asked? Word went around. People came to look and grieve. Sadly, our administrator didn't understand. Graffiti was all he heard. Get rid of it, he said. No graffiti for dead students. No exceptions. What a strange world when there must be a rule to ban graffiti for students who've been killed. We gathered in his office, a crowd of teachers and students. You can't paint this out, we said. It means too much. Our students must be allowed to mourn after the funeral. Then we can paint it over. He came to look, walked around the tree, bench by bench, clearly moved by what he saw. He got out his radio, talked into it. Leave the benches alone, he said. The students clapped. The sweetness that was Steve is gone from our school, but at his tree, in messages, in the sad dignity of his friends, part of him remains, a kind of bridge, a path of tender thoughts for his journey. The next group of the work poems, chronicles that I'm going to read, I've never read before at a reading. My writing for the last few years has been mainly in journals. I picked what I felt were significant moments in these journals and have been stringing them together to track the movement of my mind and spirit over time. I have about 30 pages of them, and I'm hoping that this will be a longer work. I call them snapshots. The selection I'm going to read comes from the summer of 2019. 7-5. I buy fragrant geraniums, loved by holly. A dove is cooing in the afternoon light. A time without my friend. Thank God for the northern mockingbird in this era of American darkness. Thank God for birdsong, tilapia fillets, asparagus with lemon sauce. Thank God for fresh picked zucchini. 7:25. Work on poems, always the best medicine. According to Jorge Luis Borges, the 4 best things in America: Whitman's Leaves of Grass, Melville's Whales, Willis Barnstone's The Secret Reader, 501 sonnets, cornflakes, that rough poetry of mourning. 8:19. Holly's memorial on August 10th, 2019, a room full of people who love her. Harry's impeccable organization. We read her work with no comments, Holly's voice, and then cookies. Kim and I laughed that I was wearing her underpants, which Holly gave me. The stack of new underpants didn't fit her. We loved that. It cheered us right up. 8:26. A finch sits at the window, doves come and go. My husband is in Bolsa Chica, taking photos of the least elegant and royal terns, beauties all, with black caps and orange beaks. On the wall above me are photos of the souls I miss, a thin tissue between us, a slight adjustment, and couldn't we all be talking? On the page, our blessed conversations. 9:06. At the nursing home in South Pasadena, old people in wheelchairs in the hallways. One woman sits in the window when I come in. I give her part of my paper, another's the sports section. They sit, stare, look mostly miserable. Lewis says it's his job to resist, rebel against this place, his condition. My mother ordered groceries one day, then had a small stroke and fell to the floor. Lewis's mother went to a ball game. Her head fell into her popcorn and she was gone. Holly told Harry to let her go. 9:08. Writing assignment from Laurel Ann's workshop, quote, a sparrow in a flock of sparrows, a wolf in a pack of wolves, one scream in a stadium of screams. We are always screaming now. I carry my scream, a constant, silent, keening. 9:16. Visit with Lewis, talk with Will, a complicated day. What's important? Rumi, removing the veil between us and spirit. The Nawa people, heart-making and face-making are the aims of life. The face must reflect the heart. Otherwise, we are just vagrants on the earth. 9:18. An Indian elder describes the Uipi ceremony. The healer has spirit elders. It is night. He is wrapped up, tied. He is praying. The lights go off. When the lights go on, he is sitting cross-legged on the blanket. Quote, they wrap him up. He calls his spirit helpers. The temperature changes. He is untied. I can't explain it. I can't explain it. 9:28. I feel overwhelmed by the dark cruelties and uncontrolled strangeness of this time. I read poems, the genius of language in poems I do not understand. That's okay. The cleanness of the words moves, delights. Those are my snapshots. And I'm going to end with a poem by Holly Prado from Esperanza, Poems from Orpheus. This is one of my favorite poems by Holly, whose spirit is always part of Cahuenga Press. The tall, upheaving one. The cypress that I pray to, it can fly. Nothing is a single species. We are made of bark, then avalanche. Orpheus can make us anything, can make us God's own door, cypress or oak or black. To be accepted there, across the boundary, as when I leave the house this morning, walking, nothing painful in my legs. I tell misunderstanding, this is our last year together. And then I see just up the street that planets are our bodies. Their mouths slam through my wrists. I was a child who practiced jumping from the top of anything right into the air. Music was a swirl of vines and leaves that left my throat. I'm calling, and I'm waiting, and I'm called too. This black, the pure unknown which finds its way exactly like the song you can't get rid of, the one I start with now and won't give up, the God obsessed with worship that is memorized, abiding, until the prayer itself moves inside out, converts those worlds of sliding rock to fragrance. I'm calling, and I'm calling, and I'm called.
Phoebe McAdams, everyone. Thank you. All right, next up we have Harry Northup, who has had 12 books of poetry published. The last one is Love Poem to MPTF. He received his BA in English from Cal State University of Northridge, where he studied verse with Anne Stanford. Northup has made a living as an actor for 34 years, acting in 37 films, including Taxi Driver, Over the Edge, and The Silence of the Lambs. He is the curator of Harry's Poetry Hour, Creative Chaos MPTF. Please, everyone, welcome Harry Northup.
Thank you, Quentin. Thank you. It's always a pleasure to read a Beyond Baroque. I always feel at home, and I feel I'm at home with all the poets. Also a great pleasure to celebrate the publication of James Cushing's voluminous Tangled Hologram. I will read one poem from my latest book, Love Poem to MPTF, and some recent poems. I will find you. I will find you behind a tree. I will find you in a bouquet of flowers. I will find you in a cup of coffee, in a book of pastoral poetry, in an absent love, in a sorrowful friend, in a narcissistic friend. I will find you in an evening sunset, in a shady nook where I practice cornet, in a friend with a terminal illness, in a home without a wife, in a wife who's coming home. I will find you in a leafless sycamore, in a rabbit, squirrel, hawk, egret. I will find you in a journey home, in a friend's compassion, at a table with a poetry book. I will find you in a photo, an email reply, in a forgiving heart, in a gracious, generous act. I will find you within. To ask for love. The orange trees are 20 feet away. It's the last day of April. In 2 days, my wife would have been 82. It's been 10 months since she died. Her body was orange blossom scent, her poetry waterfall and baseball. Our mouths spoke bodies, violets and earrings, baths I helped her into, roses and chrysanthemums. In the night of darkness, she found me. Up the stairs to a large bathroom, a burgundy sofa, beads to the bedroom, our bodies naked in the afternoon. She brought slices of cheese, thick ones of bread, white wine, to lie naked in the breeze. Our bodies never stopped meeting. We sang in a quiet home. No one touched our walls. 1 year ago tomorrow, I drove my wife Holly to ER, West Hills Hospital. She never returned home. I was with her day and night. She died 6 days later. Small green stems, several inches high, are growing around and below 13 orange trees in front of several full-bloomed jacarandas. Sometimes I say, I can't go on without my wife. Shadows lengthen and birds fly. She saw me for who I was. My hands hold her naked hips. I rest my head on her breast, kiss her neck and shoulder, caresses like jacaranda blossoms in the breeze. The shadows almost touch each other. Her body. Death has a new lover. I never wanted to share Holly with anyone but Dylan, my son who loved her, whom she loved, her body for me only. No men, no women, no doctors. Her breasts, neck, hair, shoulders. She resurrected me. I get so fucking lonely without her. Her body next to me in bed, beside me in the car movie. We shared our poetry. I bought fresh halibut, swordfish. She cooked, made salads. Her poems are like her salads. Depth, layers, many ingredients. Tasty, nourishing, fresh. Death took her. She lives in fresh water, moonlight, magnolia blossoms, eastern lilacs. They have a nice fragrance. Solitary walker. The solitary walker goes one way. He sees another solitary walker, a woman who lives in a cottage, walking the opposite way. Though he enjoys seeing her, he doesn't follow, but goes his way. On the way back to the villa, he sees her on the bridge, looking at the koi in the pond. He presses the code numbers, enters, walks near her. She's entranced by the koi's reverie. He breaks her trance. They talk. He goes on her way. He goes on his way. In comfort of their brief embrace, through distant sweetness, you might even say a spare kindness, near the koi, on a bridge at dusk. And this is my last poem. At MPTF, they have the John Ford Chapel, and John Ford used to have it at the Reseda photo farm. I think it was in Reseda, and then that went down, and then they moved it to MPTF. And he made it. He had his craftspeople make a chapel, and it's a beautiful chapel. The John Ford Chapel. No roses on bushes outside chapel. A simple, almost New England place. 3 stained glass windows, floor to ceiling. 10 wooden pews with long beige pillows tied at one end. Blue carpet, a place to pray. I pray for continuity, breath, line, devotion. I pray for understanding, to learn, to forgive those hungry, ambitious souls who see not others. I pray for the health of my neighbors. I give thanks for their generous spirits. I pray to be a good person and not offend others. I pray to departed love, and the chapel bell startled me 11 times. I ask to recognize times, to see others in a more human array. I pray for forgiveness for my limited vision. I pray to see the white wings in sunshine which hold death and love. Thank you.
Harry Northup, everyone. Absolutely beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. Next up, we have Jeanette Clough, whose poetry collection, Flourish, was a finalist in the Otis College of Art and Design and Eastern Washington University Blue Links book competitions. She's the author of 2 artist books, Stone and RX, Awards include pushcart nominations and accommodation in the Aesthetica Creative Works competition in the UK. She edited for Solo, a journal of poetry, and reviewed for Poetry International. Recent journal credits are Colorado Review, the Laurel Review, and Bellevue Literary Review. A native of Paterson, New Jersey, she earned an MA from the University of Chicago, Division of the Humanities, and was an art librarian at the Getty Research Institute. Clough co-directed the Los Angeles Barnes & Noble and Rose Cafe Poetry Series, and currently hosts poetry at Bell Arts in Ventura. She was an artist in residence at Joshua Tree National Park, where for many years she taught outdoor desert poetry workshops. Everyone, please welcome Jeanette Clough.
Well, thank you for that wonderful introduction. And I think it's by some fluke of the universe that I find myself included in this group of wonderful poets called the Cahuenga Poets. Oh, Phoebe and Harry, those are both such wonderful, strong, heartfelt readings. And I'm sure Jim will blow us into another universe in his Tangled Hologram. So in the meantime, you have to listen to me. I brought a couple. Okay, I won't even bother explaining. When I get into a new place, I often feel sort of out of place just because you're in a new place and all the new things haven't quite settled down into place yet. So I brought a couple of those. This is called Disarrangement Motel. The trim is sandy blue. The sky is also blue and the ground is sand. I try the door in the room's back wall and step onto a patio shared by all the rooms and patrolled by a gray and white long-haired cat. I wonder how far this patio goes. 4 steps broaden into a plaza with a 5-foot plastic tulip set between 2 skinny cacti, a life-size synthetic bear on its hind legs, and white flowering ground cover whose name I want to know because it holds its own so well. Spiny lily trees dressed for the occasion infuse the Ocotillo night with their off-road joie de vivre and the science of spice. There's a key in my pocket in case the door shuts and does not open from this side and I lose myself among creosote. The knob turns and I dwindle into the normalcy of bent hangers, coffee maker, and the fan only setting on the air conditioner, whose draft ventilates my hair and pulls apart the strands like a night breeze, disarranging crystals around a neon shard of moon that gradually wanes and blinks out. Thank you. This one is called Drifting into D Major. It started last week. Choruses, or sometimes a soloist with backup, spells of music when falling asleep. I haven't slept more than 5 broken hours until I think 5 broken hours is all I need. Then the singing starts. I want it to last, but it happens only in the crescent of drowse between wakefulness and sleep, where it is hard to linger without waking up or falling back to sleep. A man in the front of the bus wears a cap and sits by himself, arms and legs crossed, mouth a smile that shows his middle teeth. He nods and softly laughs and talks with his invisible friends there in the middle distance. It is the kind of laugh that makes me want to join in. Driver and passengers look out for him. Surely someone he loves will meet him at his stop. White caps bordered by a chrome horizon froth the surface of the overcast bay. The gray behind an island is mist connecting sky and water. Shades of ocean recur in the clouds. When a nuance of gray moves, water, islands, and sky move with it. A desk lamp goes on by itself in the middle of the night. I keep turning it off. A power surge or a spirit wanting light. I give odds in favor of a ghost in the wire. The same thing happens at the base of the stairs, the enclosed porch, and the adjoining foyer. The doorbell rings when no one is there. Everything looks so normal. Next night, I leave the lamp on, whether I did it or the ghost, and open the curtains after dark, so anything that goes either direction through glass will. Two more. This is a change of scenery. We're going underwater. It's about a diving experience. I guess I still am a licensed open water scuba diver, though I would definitely need a refresher if I were going to go again. This is a pod, referring to a pod of divers, not whales. Expecting to glide along the reef the first time I drift dive, but no, I exist in a narrow current that hugs a submerged cliff. Beyond, deep blue so unspeakably exquisite it makes me want to breathe water. My pod of divers stretches out single file. I don't weigh much. The drop-off cresting overhead is an underwater waterfall that would pull me down and away and drive me down in a rush, sure as force and gravity. The body thinks, turns around and swims right into the close current, face to face with another diver. Slowed down, bumping the barnacled rock, glancing over my shoulder to be sure I am still aligned with this string of swimmers. Some of them know what I am doing and keep an eye on me. Uncertain anyone would leave the reef wall to rescue me if I drift the wrong way, an undersea spacewalk gone wrong. So I fight to stay with them, with my small bulk resisting the abyss. As the reef ends, we break into our original clusters of 2 and 3 and rise slowly to a higher stretch, relieved from the threat of drag down into the deep, part of an open necklace of curved gills swimming shoreward. Below us, an expanse of bright sand lit by the filtered sun and warming the shallow water. A dog splashes into the surf to greet us. And I'm going to end with this one. It's sort of a whimsical statement about, a little story about kind of creativity and a little bit about the environment. It's called A Story About Pianos. Oh, a piano has 88 keys, so you'll notice 88 coming back in here. A story about pianos. A sea of asphalt is marked with 88 parking spaces. In each space is a player piano. The pianos start automatically, but never together or with the same music. They play morning and night, rain or shine. No one is able to stop the pianos or park their cars. A fleet of bulldozers pushes the pianos together and drives over them until they stop playing. The pianos go elsewhere. The pianos string their 7 octaves 88 times across a field. Each speck of the field has a sound to play. Samba, hip hop, jitterbug, waltzes, quadrilles, hula, clogging and crumping, composed from downpours, staccato hail, arpeggios of thunder and the silence of lightning. The lovelorn sigh of ladybugs, a basso profundo chorus of roots, cricket's fluty trill, the squeak of sprouting seeds, moth dust, broken quail eggs, a ring of standing stones, loose feathers, tufts of fur, all of it played together, dawn through dawn. The field is plowed under, sold in sod chunks, or mowed, and soon can make almost no sound at all. The pianos go elsewhere. In the open sea, the pianos continually change direction. An upright player crests a swell. Piano wires split into currents and the keys become foam. A dozen baby grands smash against a massive rock, and the harps inside their throat enter the sea. The sea breaks and heals, then breaks again. The pianos play constantly. Nothing stops them. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeanette. That was absolutely lovely. Finally, we have Jim Cushing, born in 1953 in Palo Alto, California. He holds a doctorate in English from UC Irvine. In the early 1980s, he hosted a live poetry program on KPFK FM in Los Angeles, which gave early exposure to Dennis Cooper, David Trinidad, Amy Gersler, Wanda Coleman, Leland Hickman, and many others. From 1989 to 2020, he taught literature and creative writing at Cal Poly San Luis Obispo and served as the community's poet laureate from 2008 to 2010. Cushing's poems have appeared in many journals, and his books include The Magician's Union, Solace, and most recently, Tangled Hologram, all from Cahuenga Press in Los Angeles. His daughter is the New York-based poet Iris Cushing. I'm very glad to have Jim living in Los Angeles now, and especially glad to have him here to celebrate his new book. Please welcome James Cushing.
Thank you, Quentin. Thank you, everyone, for coming. One of the people that I had on my radio show as well was the team of Jack Skelly and Bob Flanagan, whose names need to be spoken aloud here. Yeah. Holly and Harry were also on that program a number of times. I'd also like to thank Gail Wronsky for writing such a lovely blurb on the back of this book. I mean, to me, that makes the book worth owning in itself. And I'd like to, of course, thank Holly, Spirit, and Harry, and Jeanette, and Phoebe for all the wonderful thing that they've done, and to my beloved Celeste for helping make this book as real as what it is. Jeanette just read a poem about settling into a new place, about moving from one place to another, and that special feeling that one has when one is new in a place. And I wanted to start with a poem that would in some way connect with that idea, since part of the idea of Tangled Hologram is that life is holographic and involves obvious and less obvious connections and secret passageways from one thing to another. So there was a secret passageway from your poem to this. This is called The New Instructor, which is what I was at one time. The New Instructor. I'm hanging a Neruda broadside with tape to the door of a kitchen cupboard. I'm drawing with crayons on lunch bags and writing long letters on pink paper. I'm convinced that I've never been happier as I look at all my new underwear. The sun floods the apartment every afternoon. The white walls glare and glow. A voice from the radio cries, "Trash!" at me as I sweep in front of our door. The broom feels heavy in my hand, grows heavier with every stroke I take. I feel the weight of everyone I ever loved, liked, or even admired, their heavy heads and hearts, their salty sweat, the clothes they wore in public. For the second time in my life, I'm wholly on my own, and my attention has given birth to a fierce God, watched it grow and age, and killed it. I buried the body beneath the kitchen floor, but in dreams, it twitches and scratches as it shifts away the dirt I thought would keep it covered. I keep sweeping, and the broom, I swear, says something to me I can't understand. Then kisses my ear with a mouth that appears on its handle and vanishes after the kiss. Behind me, the front door feels as though it's twirling on some central axis under flickering light. That's called The New Instructor. And like many of the poems in this book, that the New Instructor is in what you might call free verse in the modern contemporary mode. But I have found that sometimes my verbal imagination is aided by more or less arbitrarily employing standard literary forms. One of my favorites is the pantoum. Some of you have heard me say this before. If you don't know what a pantoum is, I'll be glad to explain it to you. If you do, then you'll recognize how this poem works. It involves repetitions of entire lines. I think that's all really I need to say. And this poem deals with my fondness for film noir. And if any of you are film noir fans, I'm sure you will have spent some time enjoying the brilliant motion picture "The Postman Always Wings Twice," directed by Tay Garnett, starring Lana Turner and John Garfield. This is a poem, a pantoum about that movie, and it was suggested to me by David Trinidad, who has also written some wonderful pantoums. And he said, "Why don't you write a pantoum about The Postman Always Rings Twice?" And as I was doing it, I remembered that I was friends in high school with Tay Garnett's daughter, Tila. So this poem is simply called "For David Trinidad and Tila Garnett," and this is a part of Tangled Hologram. For David Trinidad and Tila Garnett. In Tay Garnett's "The Postman Always Rings Twice," Lana Turner first appears in pure white high-waist shorts so tight in the crotch that the folds of fabric clearly model her vagina, and she simply stands there as John Garfield's ground beef patty sizzles and burns on a grill. Lana first appears in pure white high-waist shorts so tight in the crotch that the moment almost takes wings and flies straight out of the movie. John Garfield lets his ground beef patty sizzle and burn on a grill. This meat is hot. Get it? Her virgin white is an act of camouflage. The moment almost takes wings and flies straight out of the movie. One thing only can equal that sexual power: the promise of murder. That meat's even hotter. We get that her virgin white's an act of camouflage. From that moment on, we want them to kill her fuddy-duddy husband. One thing only can equal Lana's sexual power: the promise of murder. The husband's as wrong for Lana as the donkey was for Titania. And from his first moment, we want them to kill the old fuddy-duddy. He's a type: rural, simple-minded, oblivious, stingy, and a drunk. Every bit as wrong for Lana as that donkey was for Titania. Their first murder plot involves a bathtub and an electrical appliance. They know his type: rural, simple-minded, oblivious, stingy, and a drunk, so they, and we, figure he'll be easy to bump off. But a cat interferes. Their first murder plot involves a bathtub and an electrical appliance, but a cop and the DA suddenly show up and notice the getaway ladder, so they, and we, figure this won't be an easy bump off. When a cat interferes, the plot gets more psychological. Their shared guilt beckons to them. When a cop and the DA suddenly show up and notice the getaway ladder, a dark pool of doom opens up around Lana and John, an ocean of lust and hate. The plot gets more psychological. Their shared guilt beckons to them, and they kill the old man because they need a crime to relieve their tension. A dark pool of doom opens up around Lana and John, an ocean of lust and hate they run into near the end of the picture. She in her tight white bathing suit. They killed the old man because they needed a crime to relieve their tension. And their last kiss leads with insolent ease to her violent death at the pole they run into near the end of the picture. She's wearing her tight white bathing suit. The folds of the fabric clearly model her vagina, and she simply lies there, their last kiss having led with insolent ease to her violent death near a pole. In Tay Garnett's The Postman Always Rings Twice, starring Lana Turner. You wouldn't mind hearing a second pantoum, would you? Because there's just something about about the magic of that form, the sense that one is going forwards and backwards simultaneously, the sense that a memory is always something different every time you run into it. This poem is called Falling Asleep Listening to Billie Holiday, which is something that I have done on more than one occasion. Falling asleep listening to Billie Holiday. The fog parts to reveal a solitary figure, and I think I can describe it as I see it. I'm convinced we will never be close, despite our dark shared knowledge. In the kitchen, men wearing cellophane masks insisted we cheer up and laugh at life. The solitary figure, probably male, will have moved hardly at all by now. I'm convinced we will never be close, despite our dark shared knowledge. We spoke at length 3 times, and each time we fell into the same hole from which the solitary male figure will hardly have moved at all by now. That guy needs to find his place near the fire, not out in the dirt and fog. We spoke at length 3 times, and each time we fell into the same hole I remember from when I worked at the bottling plant cleaning valves. I needed to find my place near the fire, not out in the dirt and fog, but there I stood, holding no keys or wallet, and smelling the way I remember from when I worked at the bottling plant cleaning valves. You would think I had grown up over the years, gotten past that fear and shame, but there I stood, holding no keys or wallet and smelling my way inside the house. Here's perfume. Here's detergent. Here's bacon grease. You'd think I had grown up over the years, gotten past that fear and shame, but watch me stumble down the stairs of years into my childhood and get up inside that house. My mother's perfume, her detergent, her bacon grease, they're all there, all real. Is that solitary figure in the hole there with them? Watch me stumble down the stairs of years into my childhood and get up in the kitchen, wearing a cellophane mask, all cheered up and laughing at life. They're all there, all real. Is the solitary figure in the hole there with them? The fog parts to reveal that solitary figure, and I think I can describe it as I see it. I was looking to see if a moon was out. It's not, no. But if you could see past the clouds, you would see it. No, you wouldn't. Well, in that case, think of this poem as more as an invocation than as a celebration. This is called Even When You're There, Even When You're in It. Oh, moon, our mother is out among the oaks walking as she sings. Our years of mystery have grown harmless as her music. My coffee cup's filthy, yet I laugh as I drink from it, and I hum as I choose a favorite book from my shelf. But I seem to need help. The spines of my books have suddenly turned blank, and I no longer live here, but in another city where hard days sting, hold our heads and bite. But here, oh moon, sunset riffs on our weary sentences. And when we drop anchor in our bed, paisley walls keep watch over us all night. Oh moon, our father is hiding under stones beneath the oaks. The wind puts a shuffle into his walk. Do they love each other, these giants, our authors and first critics, in a way we may read too? Coffee has never tasted nicer, and the sky looks long and all ours. But still, I want what hasn't won or lost, a not yet deactivated doubt that can swirl around a twice told tale and give it a plush background, so it fits into contexts we know from how they hang heavy on our eyes and descend onto our chests, breathing in a way that tickles, or used to. Now, O moon, declare your presence with a falling feather. I see light in front of me, a fast, sharp light, like a plucked string we could almost drink. Our dead appreciate our purring and coughing. They forgive us our treason and our dogs, because their comments were made possible by my fingers on your bare stomach. We divide them into fractions of concrete, trying not to weep. I'm unsure whether I remember how this felt before, but the season, oh moon, rises more slowly than bread, and has for us only the comforts our dead selected for us 100 years or more ago. There's another literary form that I'm very fond of called the cento. And this this involves taking a source text and extracting phrases or clauses from it and putting them together in a new, you might say, in a way to tangle up the hologram. So I have a couple of poems of that nature in this book that I'd like to share with you, and then I'll close out with one last one. Thank you all so much for coming. This is you can make a cento out of anything. One afternoon, I was listening to an old Beatles LP, the one called Something New, which has that's the one that has Slow Down and Matchbox and the German version of I Want to Hold Your Hand. And I put this poem together out of phrases that John Paul and George sing on that album. So it's called Big Dog, Little Dog. Big dog, little dog. If the sun has faded away, I cannot be a shoulder, but I can be happy just to dance and understand. I don't need the night, the world. When I get home, trivialities walk out that door again. So let my business through. You tell me why you cried. I apologized, and anything I can do on earth gives me a reason to be mad. My feet are people that make you sad somehow, and shy girls hide around too. Until then, the only lock that slows down after school walks with me, and books are trying to move too fast. Tell the true world to last. All it has to do is call. My eyes will be there, sorry and sad, and time will have a lot of things to tell. Tonight, cows give all. And if you saw everything The dark could never die. Bright stars, I know I'm sitting here, a long way to go, and everything I did was wrong. And then I found, and then if I mention the name Steve Goldman in this this patio, do some of you know who I'm talking about? Yeah, okay. Steve Goldman published a memoir, and I treated Steve Goldman's memoir the same way I treated the Beatles album Something New. I thought it would be nice to for at least somebody to treat Steve Goldman like a Beatle. So this is called Returning Again to New York, and all the phrases are taken from Goldman's memoir in pretty much in the same order in which it's presented. 1, unplanned light. The married semi-bastard didn't run the movie. It was no bargain, this non-biblical donkey dream. A cloaked target became convinced of a great charade. The spirit of the corner had ornate gingerbread parents. A teenage dread mumbled in my New York body cast, waiting for the midnight daughter to play her loving cup. We had an old communist Beethoven harmonica teacher. Her dry winter window was a drum skin where I belonged. Before I had the lawyer, she shouted, I was considered powerless with gold animal appendages. I was prone to soliloquy and masked theory of law. And I replied, don't laugh. The power of madness can't fence. At school, I receive a mandarin red earthquake and one small mother with a kind Zen wand at last blossoming in little silver convulsions twice per day, 3 times a week. I stammer in front of my pejorative Republican mother. The lessons at the wheel, and I have no self now. I am in a movie looking free and dizzying and occult. But now a promise of groggy rescue dies in 3 days, and she walks out in England, listening to ashes in my mouth. One night, a papery whisper says, the original kid never failed. The distance is our kiss on the lips over New York. Our family shield escapes the fetish of Brooklyn continually. Their mouths spray iron dust onto a little boy's clip-on tie. After the war, a white horse resists, gets up, and it's over. 2, the child at the door. Squeezing out rubber tomahawks, I was the timid diplomat who refused to believe anything made of brick. The summer my radio would break and die, the dreaded smart kid years started, and my therapy towered above me, as bullies always have. I swore to myself right then that I would always remember the poor kid's small army, the imposter on the racehorse, and the explosive Jewish Jesus. The moon poked its snout into the direction I was going. Across my waist, a cigar let me know a growth industry was a wound. Had it not been for my mother's marriage, one standing pane of light could be seen in the whole village. Proper, red-headed, lonely, ceramic. But she'd been divorced, so I'd slam conspiratorial drinks and we'd talk about archetypes of the sentimental. My uncle had gritty male favorites a block away from us, and his wife, Aunt Lily, had a Brooklyn garbage can lid. I began to find a place among cops. One cop gave me Mark Twain, some Chinese jade, a book of Turner seascapes, and best of all, a box. Real feathers, gleaming brass, enameled and silly, but vastly expensive and gallantly bohemian. His century was blue suits and a veil of flabbergasted macho that never understood why it became such a sacred moment in my lifetime. 3, the crack on the left. Today, I remember my mother's little Brooklyn bodega. I was a heedless, shouting baritone, and toys with college degrees glared at me with silent, distant menace as soon as I exited a room. I remember my pajamas standing apart from me, It was the 60s, and miniaturized cowboy guns cost only 75 cents. But 6 years later, I was born, and Heraclitus bombed the universe inside the family. The market fails, the headline surrenders. Don't get me wrong, our rear kitchen window knew nothing. I cannot speak here of the white plaster president, the balsa wood rifle, the 15 cents that have changed hands, the electric scooter that was respectful to my parents. In my mythic dream time, I knew all this, developed a ritual, but didn't have enough prisoners. Therefore, Mom, you're working for me, a lyric alone in a small room, unmarked, plainly visible. I'm home for 2 days. My deepest voice is opened like a sunburst. I did what I could and asked why our cosmic iconography remained faceless, unable to move or cry out. Not so far away, other children exist only as symbols on my face. My father strides over to my bed, a searchlight because of who I am. I repeat my black magic because sanity is a damaged wind-up toy, and every bakery has its own philosophy of language. So it's possible to do that with virtually any text. So if you have a book in your house, you have a large number of poems. Again, thank you all very much for coming. I'm reading from my new book, Tangled Hologram, which is available at the bookstore. And for all my Beyond Baroque friends, there's a special deal going on with this, that if you buy a copy of this book, you get a copy of one of my other books without charge. So then they're all there for you, and I'd be glad to sign them and inscribe them. I'm going to close with a prose poem called Dream of Women. In my dream, Memphis Minnie stands near me, her face sore from laughing. Joan Didion, pale in a light green sundress, stands near her, looking anxious, but Minnie stifles a giggle anyway. Now Betty Davis and Joan Crawford, wearing their whatever happened to Baby Jane makeup and costumes, enter through the kitchen door, arguing, as they like to do. And a minute later, Marianne Moore appears in through the same door, her mother standing a few inches behind her. The poet shakes her head and walks away, headed toward, we imagine, the apartment she shares with the elderly lady. Patricia Highsmith comes out from the bathroom where she's been sewing up a rip in the crotch of her pantsuit while having a heart-to-heart with Elizabeth Bishop about the ups and downs of living in exile, France, Brazil. Who's that napping on the bed? It's Louise Brooks, as I live and breathe. She's tired from a long week and had to rest a moment. She came with her friend Betty Page, who's reading a magazine over in the corner, guarding Louise's sleep, as she likes to say. The phone rings. Billie Holiday, lost, is asking me for the address. I give it to her. Carla Bley asks, "Is that Billie? I have to ask her something." And she takes the phone. I notice Virginia Woolf in the corner, listening intensely to Rachel Maddow, while Dorothy Parker, seated nearby, looks down at her shoes and smokes. A bell rings several times, and the house lights flash. One of our favorites, Ruth Bader Ginsburg, has just arrived with a limo full of friends. Look at him. Hillary Clinton, Joan Baez, Angela Davis, Janet Malcolm, Yoko Ono, Grace Kelly, Hedy Lamarr, Mary Shelley, Gertrude Stein, Myra Hess, Frida Kahlo, Nina Simone, Maxine Waters, Martha Argerich, Sally Ride, Margaret Sanger, Meredith Monk, Carole King, Agnes Martin, Chrissy Hind, Joni Mitchell, Ida Lupino, Simone de Beauvoir, Lauren Bacall, Beyonce, Shirley Chisholm, Exene Cervenka, Wanda Coleman, Jane Freilich, and Nico. The party is really rocking now. Good thing I live in a big enough place for all these people to mingle, eat, and drink and sway to some good jazz. This dream's turning into like a customized version of Desolation Row with all these characters. Now, look out the window. Just outside in the cool air, talking, stand Emma Bovary, Anna Karenina, Odette and Albertine, Daisy Faye, Sabina and Teresa, stuttering Mary Lavav, elegant Mrs. Dalloway, clever Rosalind, scheming Lady Macbeth, sexy Circe, long-suffering Penelope. Sappho takes her Martin acoustic guitar out of its case and starts tuning up. Is it right or wrong to want to live inside this dream as long as I can? Thank you again so much for showing up. Thank you, Beyond Baroque. Thank you. Thank you, Harry. Thank you, Phoebe. Thank you, Jeanette. And thanks to the spirit of Holly Prado, who was always with us, and Beyond Baroque.
All right, one more round of applause for Jim and all our readers. So we don't have any hot sizzling patties of beef, but we do have some wine and crackers, cookies. Please feel free to stick around. And we have something even better than murder too, which is copies of Tangled Hologram for sale. So please buy some copies and hang out for a while. Thanks.